Welcome to the Porn Reboot Podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Amazy, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode. Today we're going to talk about dopamine, and I'm going to be sharing one way that you can learn how to create dopamine in a consistent manner while rebooting and maintain this for the rest of your life. I was having a conversation with Dr. Rankin. Dr. Rankin is one of our reboot coaches. He focuses on life coaching, but he is an expert at kindness, forgiveness. And every time I have a conversation with him, just the level at which he vibrates is one of compassion and love. That means we can be having a conversation, but Dr. Rankin will not connect with you he will connect with you, but he will not connect with you deeply till both of you enter that area of compassion and love and connection. He's just one of those people that maybe I notice it naturally. He was interviewing me for a podcast. He has a podcast on UK public radio, and he brought up something very interesting, and I want to talk about this. Before that, it has to do with dopamine. But before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about dopamine and what it is. Dopamine is basically a neurotransmitter. It is a hormone that basically influences motivation. It influences pleasure. It is a precursor to pleasure. It's a precursor to reward. And as a result of that, it influences your learning. It influences your memory. It impacts your mood, your sleep, and your ability to concentrate. Because dopamine is a neurotransmitter, which is a precursor, that means it signals that something pleasurable is happening. You learn this way. You begin to learn that, okay, if I do this thing, something pleasurable will happen. So when you are addicted to pornography, when you are searching for, let's say, the next scene that you are going to possibly orgasm to. So let's say you've got multiple tabs open, you're watching something, but then suddenly you're like, nah, I need to find something else. Then you're like, I need to find something else. And God only knows how crazy it is these days, because it was already crazy back in my day when I had this problem. But I know that's what happened with me. Then I would start searching for different genres, and I would start looking at the little thumbnails. I'm like, oh, that looks like I'm going to get something from it. So I would go click on that. And now after like a few seconds and on. And what is actually happening, if you can relate to that, is you are releasing dopamine. It is telling you that, hey, that one might be pleasurable. Hey, that one might be pleasurable. But guess what? Each time you do that, you're releasing more and more dopamine. A lot of people think that dopamine is what is released ultimately when you orgasm. But what is actually happening is that you are releasing dopamine and other neurotransmitters because it is telling you and teaching you that if you go for these different things, if you click on these different things, all these visual cues, eventually you're going to get the reward, which is orgasm. And the type of material that you're looking at plays a very big role, because the more you look at different materials, you begin to learn that, missionary style, for example, sexual position, it doesn't quite do it for me. So then you look for something more risque, and then, you're like, okay, the dopamine's flowing again. And then you start doing that. What are you doing? You are learning. You're going through the learning process of what brings you pleasure. And this is very important because it's the same brain, my brother, that is releasing dopamine and that you are using to learn sexual cues while viewing pornography that you use in regular life. It's the same brain that you're going to use when you are hanging out with your kids, when you are learning at work, when you are studying in school, when you are building a business. And if you have damaged your brain by constantly letting it know that, hey, I only release dopamine when there are certain cues, and those cues all have to lead to orgasm, when you are deep in your compulsion, you can now see how you become very dysfunctional.
This is one of the reasons why when you get very stressed, when you get overwhelmed at work, you go to pornography. One of the reasons is that you are not getting that pleasurable response from work anymore. You're not getting that pleasurable response from effort anymore. And what we do at Porn Reboot is we retrain you and we teach you how to regain that pleasure response again. Now, with that being said, I was having this conversation with Dr. Rankin, and he was talking about how he's worked with us for a couple of years. And he was saying, JK, I just love showing up and coaching the guys. And one of the things I shared with him is the reason why it is so easy to work with the brothers in Porn Reboot is because we do screen men who come into the program. We are very selective. Yes, I know some of our programs are what men would say is not affordable. However, when you are joining a program that is doing things differently from the way I call it the religion of recovery has done it, when you're joining a program where you are more or less guaranteed to gain control within 90 days if you follow the program, and within a year and a half to 2 years, you can rewire your brain, what would you pay if you were in your 60s or in your 70s later on in life and you realized that you had depleted all your dopamine and you had lived decades without pleasure, seeking pleasure, like pleasure was so hard for you to find. You're living through depression and emptiness and a broken dick from PIED. What would you give and what would you pay to gain all of that back within a year and a half to 2 years? Let me tell you, the fees for our program are nothing compared to that. They are so tiny compared to what you would actually pay. So I told him that yes, there is a fee. The level of our coaching is something else. He himself is, there are people also paying to work with Dr. Rankins coming through our program. But also we screen for a very specific type of man. We screen for a man who is willing to be open about his pain. We screen for a man who shows vulnerability. There are so many men. I've often said this. We have anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000 men applying to the Porn Reboot system every month. This has not slowed down. It has not slowed down for, I would say, 5 or 6 years. First of all, we can't work with that volume. But secondly, we realize that there are a lot of men who are very impulsive. So what is it about a man struggling with porn? When you are impulsive, you're also impulsive about seeking help. So you see something, you hear me speak, it sounds good, boom. You immediately go into that impulsive behavior. You're like, I'm going to apply. What he said makes sense. Great, but what happens when you're sitting in front of somebody, when you're sitting in front of a strategist or coach for your first call to learn about the program? Well, immediately your brain does what the addict brain does. It goes like, well, what's the pleasure in this? What's the pleasure? I'm not feeling the excitement. I'm not feeling the anticipation that I felt at the time when I scheduled this call or put through this application. And so you begin to tell yourself a story. Nah, this is too much work, because then the process of rebooting feels like hard work because you're not releasing any pleasurable neurotransmitters. And so you show up in a way that disqualifies you. We can tell. And our reboot strategists will not spend more than 10 minutes with you if they cannot feel your pain or if they're closed off. And they will be very honest and compassionate with you. I was explaining to Dr. Rankin that this is one of the reasons why the men who are self-aware enough to know, like, okay, I think I can do this on my own, but I've been living with this for so long. Let me not play myself. I've used willpower. I've played this game before. Yes, there was a time when I was off pornography for 3 months, 4 months, but I'm going to stop playing myself. And they actually show up. And this is the type of man who is in the program. And that's one of the reasons why it's so enjoyable. But that's not what I was going to share with you guys. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of insight into that application process. He was talking about how he is so excited to show up and coach. And I was like, yeah, me too. I love showing up to my Wednesday sessions with my intensive clients. There are times, admittedly, where I'm like, this morning sucks. And it has nothing to do with the session. It has something to do with my life. I'm human. Sometimes things are just going ways I just didn't imagine. Sometimes I'm exhausted right before the call even begins at 11 a.m. But the moment the call begins, I'm on. And Dr. Rankin told me, he was like, it is because of the dopamine that we are releasing. Why? Because we are working with men who are committed to doing this. We as coaches get a positive reward from working with them. Because no matter the pain a brother brings to a session, if ultimately he is open to being coached, we trust our skills. We are pretty fucking good at what we do. We trust our skills. And so we know there's going to be a positive reward for us when a man is the right man in the program. So any of you who are listening to this, who work with clients in any capacity, or maybe you're a recovery coach or you are a therapist, this is amazing for us. I never thought of it this way. I was like, why have I been doing this for like 13 years? And I can just run my mouth and listen to clients, and I'm excited about it. And I have notes right in front of me. I have notes for about 3 different clients right now where I'm solving their problems. And what is the thing? I am excited. I'm excited. Tomorrow's Saturday, and I got take 20s with a couple of guys from the Reboot Intensive program. And I'm starting to become aware, because I had this conversation with Dr. Rankin, that, oh, I'm looking forward to helping them solve their problem so I can get a dopamine hit. That is the selfish part of it. But there's also a dark side, because last year, one of the things I realized was that, I know it sounds crazy, brother, but I began to suspect that I was addicted to coaching. And that is not a good thing. I know it's such a weird thing to say. I was addicted to coaching. That is so strange to say. But it was true. I was neglecting other things in the business, and I would find myself getting maybe a little bit obsessive over fixing, and that's already a problem. And I believe that I can fix a client's problem. I cannot fix anybody's problem. I can only influence. I can only give tools. You, brother, you are the best expert at yourself, and you are the only one who can fix it. So it became dangerous, because when I did not see a client getting the results, when I saw a client struggling, I was starting to get a negative feeling. And this only started early last year, 2024. Unfortunately, I let it linger for a while. And I was like, why am I getting like so irritated? And then I began to notice it more and more. And I didn't connect it directly to dopamine, but it was a very familiar feeling. It was a familiar feeling of not getting the thing that I wanted. I made some changes. I scaled back who I was working with. I also made a decision to go bigger. I made a decision to move away from what I am doing right now and start thinking big. I turned 40 years old last year, and I decided that this is it. There's so many people out there talking about pornography. JK, it is time for you to go out into the world and spread this message. Spread this message to the people who will never sit in front of you and be coached. But let them hear your voice. Let them read your words, and let them find hope. Because a lot of my progress, if not almost all of it, most of it anyway, can be attributed to the words I read or the voice I heard of some man at some point in my 20s, even my teens. And when I heard it, read it, listened to it, I resonated. And it totally changed the way that I viewed things. And so that is the impact that I want to have. It's lovely. It's wonderful. It is so fulfilling to work with men one-on-one and in small groups. But ultimately, what this led me to was a seeking of more serotonin than dopamine. I mean, now I'm realizing that a feeling of well-being and stepping away from the egotistical part of dopamine. Dopamine can really be something that seeking it can become a very egotistical thing, because it becomes the seeking of pleasure, and it builds up your self-image to a point where it is sometimes grandiose. So I'm like, if I can do this with the realization that none of this shit even matters. Like right now we have people who are just basically plagiarizing our material, putting it out there, and I don't even particularly give a shit. Now, this is not permission for you to do it. Don't let me catch you though. But we have people doing that. And I'm like, you know what? As long as the message is not twisted and turned into something else and it helps brothers out there, I'm cool with that. Because ultimately, I'm not taking any of this stuff to the grave. In fact, I'm starting to realize, gentlemen, that building your ego around something like this is one of the worst things you can do, because it becomes so difficult to detach yourself from the things you've accomplished. Anyway, I'm all over the place with this. I apologize for that. Here is the lesson I want to share with you. You can begin to do things in your life right now wherever you are at in your reboot, that become the precursor, that become the dopamine release to something pleasurable. And I think it is so fascinating and amazing and beautiful, or like Dr. Rankin said, miraculous, that one can go from watching some man having sex with a woman or coming on her face or whatever it is that you're into, and that becomes the pinnacle of pleasure for you, to seeing somebody actually watching their face as they begin to realize that, oh, so that is the thing that has been holding me back for 2-3 years. Seeing somebody come to a realization that, oh, this thing I've been doing over and over again, this limiting belief is what's been holding me back. Seeing somebody understand that, oh my God, that's how it clicks. It works. Oh my God, I've been doing the tool the wrong way all these weeks. I got it. To go from whatever the craziest scene is that you last orgasmed to seeing another human being win. Guys, it's so far away. It's worlds apart. But this is what rebooting does. And I want to just thank Dr. Rankin for the conversation, his deep and wise insights into things like this. Thank you very much, sir. Brothers, rebooting is a magical thing. I've been really feeling it. In fact, in our intensive group, there was this little joke where, first of all, I'm closing enrollment into the intensive program shortly. And the reason why, some of you already know, I've talked about it being my last year of group coaching. I've already moved on from one of our programs, but right now somebody said we are in maybe it's the spiritual arc of the program, where we have so many men who are in the maintenance stage, a lot of men entering the late stage of the program. So right now, if you were to show up to one of our sessions, there are so many men who are either progressing really fast or in the later stages of their reboot that, frankly speaking, it doesn't mean you won't be able to catch up. I think it's a beautiful environment to come in, to show up in an environment where men were slipping and relapsing like you, and then you're around just a bunch of winners. You're around a bunch of guys who are in the later stages of their reboot. You can't help. You have no choice. The environment is just going to pull you up to that level. So we probably will have men rebooting faster than they ever did this year. But at the same time, I think it's going to take a lot of effort for some brothers who are accepted into the intensive program to kind of wrap their heads around what's happening, because some of the conversations we have are not even about the tools anymore. They're not about the tools and all those things. They're really about much deeper things. Like last week, we had a conversation about weaknesses and identifying areas of our life where many of you, the listener, you might have a weakness. But my question to you is, when was the last time that you actually accepted a weakness? And when I say accepted, it means you were never going to work on that weakness ever again in your life. Ever again. You're like, I'm not going to work on this. I'm not going to touch it. And that sparked a whole conversation. Why? Because there were very few men who could identify one right off the top of their head. That weakness cannot be your addiction to pornography or some impulsiveness. I'll probably do another podcast on that. But I appreciate you listening. Those are a couple of announcements too, squeezed in there. The ADHD is heavy today with your brother in the struggle. So I'll sign off now, and I'll see you on the next episode.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot Group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is, if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, You want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving? Then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.